Last week, we were talking about ICE, how to know your rights with ICE, how to defend yourself against the illegal actions that we've seen ICE engaging in a lot of cities recently, and very recently, Minneapolis has been a big target. We're going to pick up a little before where we stopped last time, just so we can review the know your rights part before we get into what you can do as an observer. All of the things that I'm sharing with you through this presentation are available at this web address. It's the New York Immigration Coalition. It's New York Immigration Coalition, NYIC.org/KYR. This full presentation plus more slides. This is selected slides. All of this is available on their website, in addition to the Know Your Rights card that you see right here. All sorts of guidance around immigration, around how you can interact with ICE, how you can resist ICE attempts to go beyond your rights. This is the digital access that you have to all these resources, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Just to review the Know Your Rights, this is the Know Your Rights card that's available on their website. You may have seen a little red card that's very similar to this. This is just a good thing to have either for yourself or to give to others to remind them of what rights you have. So you have the right to remain silent. If you're asked any questions, you can say, I don't want to answer any questions. You can say that you do not wish to speak with an ICE agent or answer their questions. You can give them this card as an answer to those questions as well, to say, I do not wish to speak to you. I do not give you permission to enter my home without a warrant signed by a judge. Again, it's really important that warrant is signed by a judge, and we'll look at that later too. I don't consent to searches of my person, belongings, vehicle, or home. So you can say, I don't consent to those searches. If you are detained, you can say, I want to contact my attorney immediately. You need to say that so that they know that is a right that you are asserting. And you can also say, I refuse to sign anything without advice from my attorney. And that's something that you should do. So don't sign anything without an attorney. So all of these are rights that you have, whether you're an immigrant, whether you're a citizen, whether you're undocumented. Anyone who is in the US has these rights. And one of the things that we have seen recently is that ICE and related agencies like Border Patrol have been not respecting people's rights. They've been doing things even when people assert their rights. They've been overstepping what they're doing. They've been taking advantage of people even as they're saying what their rights are. It is absolutely essential that you remember that even when people are doing that, you still have rights and you still get to assert those rights. And if those rights are going to be violated, it's still important that you assert them, because you can make the case of, you know what, I asserted my rights and then they were violated, right? So it's really important that you continue to know that you have rights and also to assert them in these situations. One of the things about these slides is that they made them publicly available, which is why I'm using them and sharing them with you. They want people to use these as an educational tool for the community. So what can you do? What can you do if you are a witness to ICE trying to detain someone? But if you see immigration enforcement, you want to verify, are these actually immigration agents? Immigration agents will usually be wearing something that says police, but they will also say something like DHS or CBP, which is Border Patrol. One of the things that happens in the city that we talked about last time is there is a city department that's DHS, that's the Department of Homeless Services. That is not immigration. It's weird because they both have the same initials, but if you see a van that's the Department of Homeless Services and it's a city van or somebody wearing something that says that, that's a city agency that works with the homeless population. DHS is going to have something that says police and then Department of Homeless Services. So pay attention to symbols, clothing, vehicles, and what exactly their uniforms say, because that's going to be important if you're reporting it to someone. And again, too, you want to differentiate them from NYPD. So if it's NYPD, they're wearing an NYPD badge. That is a police officer. It's not someone from DHS or Border Patrol. If you see immigration enforcement, you can document. If you feel safe, and again, this is always thinking about your level of comfort and assessing what your role is in the situation, what you are capable of doing safely. If you feel safe, you can take video or photos of what's happening. You have a legal right to do that. If doing that, focus on the agents and what they are doing or saying. Make sure that you are taking pictures or video of the agents themselves. You can also write down details of what happened. So if you don't feel comfortable in the moment of taking pictures or videoing, then you can write down details after the fact. You can document it in multiple different kinds of ways, even if you don't feel like pulling your phone out and doing that in the moment, or you don't feel safe doing that. Another thing too that I've seen mentioned in trainings is if you are filming, it's a good thing to narrate, if you can, what's happening. So what you're seeing happen in that moment. So you can say, this ICE agent is detaining 2 people right now. I asked them for their badge number and they didn't give it to me. Whatever's happening. It adds another level of clarity to the thing that you are capturing in that moment, the documentation you are making in that moment. But again, if you don't feel comfortable taking video or taking pictures, you can always still write down details after the fact. So it's important too, there's this thing called salute, which I'll show you in a minute. But when you're reporting that you've seen immigration enforcement, it's really helpful if you have certain details in your report. This isn't always possible, but the best you can to get these elements, if you're going to call one of these lines and say, I've seen immigration, which we'll talk about who you can contact for that. But you want to be able to say, what was the time, the date, and the location where you were when you saw immigration? What type of agents did you see? And how many of them were there? So if they were DHS agents, you could say, I saw 3 DHS agents. And then how were they dressed? What were they wearing? How did you know that they were DHS agents? Were they in camo? Were they wearing a bulletproof vest? How did they identify themselves if they did identify themselves to you? What did their vehicles look like if you saw vehicles? What time did they show up? What time did they leave? What was it that they said or did? Was there any coercion or violence? And then did anyone get detained or arrested that you saw? And we'll look at this again as well. So as much information in these categories that you can get, that will be the most helpful when you report that you've seen immigration. And sometimes too, things like taking pictures can make it easier to recall that information later on. Not only are you documenting it in picture form, it's just also a good way of saying, oh yeah, there were 3 agents that I saw. There they are in the picture. So if you see immigration enforcement, one of the important things is not to interfere with officers. Don't argue or physically resist them. This is for your safety, among other things. Make sure you stay safe and make sure other people stay safe and know their rights. If they are trying to detain somebody, you can stand there and say, you have a right not to answer questions. You have a right to ask for a lawyer. You can tell somebody who's being detained that they have rights. Also, you can have a legal support number or trusted contact in case anything happens. I'm actually going to give you a number that's about where you can report if you see immigration. That can be a good one too, that they can get you to other people who could help with legal support. Why is it important that we're documenting ICE and ICE activities? So if ICE or other agents violate people's rights, like we were talking about before, so you might be asserting your rights and they violate your rights. This is then proof that may help with the person who's being detained's case or the person who's being targeted by ICE's case. You then have proof that they actually did violate this person's rights. If ICE lies about an incident, you have proof of what actually happened. So all of these videos that we've seen recently of ICE detaining people, as awful as they are and as hard as they are to watch, they have been really central to holding ICE accountable, to at least saying, we see what's happening here. They are describing in ways that defy what we see, but it's like we have evidence of the thing that actually happened. And without that, it's really hard to hold ICE accountable because they will say all sorts of things. But when we have this witness to it, this documentation, that's why we know about what they're doing right now. So it's really important that we get that. And together we can hold ICE accountable with that as a tool. If you've seen an incident with ICE afterwards, stop and think about what the goals and the risks are before sharing anything or posting anything online. You have witnessed an interaction, you have pictures, you have video. There are places where you can send this picture and video that will then alert other people. Sometimes these have been streamed online. What I would suggest is to make sure that your camera is backing up to the cloud somewhere, so to Google Drive or whatever it is that you use to back up your pictures and your video, so you know that you have it. And then do take a moment and think about where is the best place to put this. You can seek advice from a trusted community group or an attorney about how to protect yourself and those on camera. You don't want to jeopardize anybody who's in the video who may have been detained or might not want their identity to be known. So it's good to just step back for a second, and you can report this to a group that is doing ICE Watch without making it completely public in a way that might be detrimental to the people being detained. That is a personal call, but that's one version of best practices there. When appropriate, share information about raids or other enforcement activity with your trusted networks. Make sure to only share verified information and something that you or someone else you trust witnessed. Sometimes things will go around or we'll say things like, I was spotted wherever. And I think the intention is good, right? People are trying to warn other people, but sometimes some of those become rumors that don't have any backed up evidence of that being the case. So it could be that somebody saw the Department of Homelessness services and thought that it was the federal DHS agents. And they're like, I've seen ICE on wherever. Again, I think people have good intentions, but that can cause panic when there doesn't need to be panic sometimes. Make sure that you're sharing verified information. You're sharing things that have pictures or that are coming from trusted sources. Again, the thing that we're trying to do here is share information and not make people unduly afraid. We want to have power in these moments as opposed to just spreading panic. And if someone is detained or arrested, you can work with trusted community groups to support their families and loved ones. There's a lot of mutual aid going on right now. You can also help by seeking advice from a trusted immigration attorney. And the New York Immigration Coalition, among their resources, they have a lot of information about how to access an immigration attorney. You can always call them too, and they can help you with that as well. This is a card that they have available on their website that is about what we just talked about. So what to do if you see immigration enforcement. It's another one of those small cards that you can carry with you. So if you're interested in getting some of those, or you're interested in printing some out, if people are interested, you can go to this website. What else can you do? We talked about if you witness somebody being detained, but what can you do in the interim? I think there's a lot of a sense of wanting to help people and wanting to support people in our community and wanting to be prepared if this does happen. What can we do in the interim? This is something I've felt, so I think it's probably something other people are feeling too, that you want to be supportive. What are other things that we can do? Organize your community. One of the things that has been really hopeful about this situation is that people are coming together for collective action. They're organizing within their communities. They're offering each other mutual aid. One of the things that we've seen in Minneapolis is that there's a really vibrant network of people delivering food to undocumented families who are afraid to leave their homes, but they still have to eat. They still have to be supported. People who have been detained, people are helping them to pay their lawyers' fees or to just support their family in the interim. There's a lot of that going on. It doesn't always have to be about money. It can be about volunteering. It can be about just finding places where you can be useful in spreading information and also just supporting people who are suffering the most under these policies. Know your neighbors. Know your neighbors in your building. Just let them know that you're looking out for them. They're not alone. You can canvass areas where your neighbors live or work. So if you wanted to hand out know your rights information to people, even just as little cards, that's a great thing to do. And then start a group chat to easily communicate in the case of enforcement citing. We haven't really talked in Tech Talk about the app called Signal, but there are a bunch of groups on Signal that are organizing rapid response to immigration enforcement. But if you are part of any sort of community group, if you're part of any kind of group chat within the neighborhood, maybe alert them to the fact that you could use that group chat to let people know if there are things going on in the neighborhood that involve ICE or DHS. So use networks that you already have to respond to these. So be a good neighbor. Post know your rights information in your building, places where you go. Share the cards, like I said. You can share them with family members, with friends, neighbors. Set up a community fridge in your neighborhood. That can be a little bit difficult, but working with other places in the neighborhood to do food delivery, distributing essential items to neighbors in need, and volunteering with community organizations in your area. Know your elected official. Know who represents you in the government. There's a lot going on right now in terms of the Democrats pushing back against DHS funding right now. We need them to keep doing that. We need them to keep saying we won't support DHS. So if you see opportunities to contact your legislators in Congress, sign a petition, give them a call. I've called a couple times and it is a little nerve-wracking, but it feels really good to do, to say, you know what, no more money to DHS. And we mean this. We want you to hold the line on that. We have a new city council member. Elsie Encarnacion is our new city council member. She's a good person to know. Her office is right up the street and she's very involved in this response to DHS ICE. Contact your elected officials. They are a really important source of holding back the illegal actions that ICE is taking. And there'll be multiple ways you can do that. You can email them, you can call them, you can sign petitions. And some of the things that you can ask for is to provide more services and support for immigrant community members, pass laws and policies that protect immigrants. There's one on the state level right now called the New York for All Act. I know that's something that they're trying to pass right now that would protect immigrants across New York State in ways that they're not protected right now. Don't forget your elected officials work for you. They're supposed to work for your benefit, for the benefit of everyone in their district, whether they are documented or undocumented. So hold them to that as much as you can. Again, I wanted to show you When you go to this website, NewYorkImmigrationCoalition.org/knowyourrights, you can also go in here and look at some of their other resources as well. This is just from their homepage, but you can find out more about them by just going to their main website, nyic.org. And if you go to any protests or rallies about immigration rights, you will see them. They are very front and center. You'll see their logo, you'll see their representatives from their organization. You can also request Know Your Rights materials directly from them. You can find out ways to volunteer by filling out their form that's on this link. Also, just following them on Instagram is a really good step, because then you can just keep your eyes open for what's happening next. If you want to get more involved, you can follow them on Facebook as well. Just look up New York Immigration Coalition and you'll see their logo, which looks like this. One last thing that I wanted to show you, one of the things that we have said is that DHS or any federal officers can't enter your home without a judicial warrant. I wanted to show you what a judicial warrant looks like, as opposed to what are the warrants that they might use to pretend like it's the judicial warrant. It's called an administrative warrant, and that does not actually allow them to get into your home. In order to enter your home, ICE agents either have to be invited in. This is why we tell you not to open your door, because that can be construed as an invitation. So don't open your door. Ask if they have a judicial warrant. A judicial warrant has got to be signed. It's this one on the left. It has to be from a United States District Court, and it has to be signed by a judge. And it has to have all your right information, your name spelled correctly, your apartment number exactly correct. And the likelihood that ICE is going to have this kind of warrant if they come to someone's house is very small. They do not often have these kind of warrants. So what they try and use instead is these things that are called administrative warrants that are from the Department of Homeland Security, and they're just signed off on by an immigration officer. That does not allow them to enter your apartment. It has to be signed by a judge. This is not valid for them to enter your apartment. So remember, if that is something that is happening, or if you're advising somebody else about how they interact with ICE or DHS, say they cannot enter your apartment unless you let them in or they have a judicial warrant signed by a judge with all the correct information on it. And they probably won't have that. So just keep that in mind, because there are tricks that they try and use to bypass some of these things that really are your right, that you have a right not to have your apartment searched unless they have this judicial warrant. So just know it has to be signed by a judge. Keep that in mind. And again, I wanted to say too that on the New York Immigration Coalition's Know Your Rights page, things are available in many languages. So please do check those out. If you need them in another language, they have a good amount of translated resources, including all of those slides, which are available in Spanish and Chinese, as are the Know Your Rights cards and many other things. I know that you are already in your community, knowing your neighbors, connecting to your neighbors, connecting to one another. I hope that what this leaves you with is a sense of knowing that you have rights, knowing that you have power, and knowing that we have power as community to push back against the abuses of ICE and all of these federal agencies that are trying to do immigration enforcement, and that we are all neighbors and we are all in this together and we will help each other no matter what. And that's what SMART's committed to as well.